The great chamber fell silent as Representative Zektar stepped forward to the speaking platform. His 6 arms moved gracefully as he adjusted the ceremonial robes that marked his position in the Galactic Council. Around him sat delegates from 12 different worlds, each representing their species in this solemn yearly gathering. Today they would honor the memory of those who were gone forever. Fellow beings of the Council, Zektar began, his voice carrying across the vast hall. Through translation devices, we gather once more to remember those civilizations that time has claimed. Today we add one more name to our list of the extinct. The delegates shifted in their seats. Some had expected this moment for years. Others still held hope that perhaps this species might return from whatever darkness had claimed them. But 50 years of silence spoke louder than any hope. The species known as humans, Zektar continued, are hereby declared extinct. No communication has reached us from Earth or any human colony in 5 decades. Their ships no longer travel the trade routes, their stations drift empty in space. We must accept that humanity has joined the countless others who came before us and could not survive the harsh reality of existence in this galaxy. Far from the council chambers, on a world that appeared dead to any scanning device, Captain Jake Morrison watched the ceremony through intercepted broadcasts. His weathered face showed no emotion as he listened to his own species being declared extinct. Around him, dozens of other humans worked quietly at their stations, monitoring communications from across the galaxy. "They really did it," said Dr. Lisa Park, looking up from her monitoring equipment. 50 years and they finally gave up on. Jake nodded slowly. "That was always the plan. Let them think we're gone while we figure out what to do next." The hidden base around them stretched for miles underground, carved into the rock of a moon that registered as lifeless on all scans. It was one of hundreds of such facilities scattered across space, each one housing thousands of humans who had supposedly vanished from the galaxy. The truth was far different from what the aliens believed. 5 decades earlier, human intelligence had discovered something terrible. Several alien species, led by the Vrelian Empire, were planning a coordinated attack on human space. They feared humanity's rapid expansion and advanced technology. They saw humans as a threat that needed to be removed before it became too powerful to stop. Admiral Ben Cruz had made the hardest decision in human history. Rather than fight a war they might not win, humanity would disappear. Every human settlement was evacuated in secret. Every ship was recalled. Every communication beacon was shut down. To the rest of the galaxy, it would look like humanity had simply vanished overnight. The operation took 3 years to complete. Millions of humans were relocated to hidden worlds and underground facilities. Advanced technology made these bases invisible to standard scans. The galaxy continued to search for humans for a few years, then gradually accepted that some disaster had claimed the entire species. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Chris Martin from his station, "I'm picking up something unusual. It's not from any known species." Jake walked over to examine the readings. "What kind of signal?" "It's mathematical patterns, but not like anything in our databases. The transmission is coming from Sector 7749, way out beyond the edge of mapped space. It's been repeating for the last 6 hours." Dr. Park joined them, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "The pattern suggests intelligence, but the source is too far away to be any of the council species. Could it be a new civilization?" Jake studied the data flowing across the screens. "Or something else entirely. Have we been able to decode any of it?" "Working on it," Chris replied. "The mathematics are complex, but there's definitely a pattern. If I had to guess, I'd say someone is asking for help." The irony was not lost on Jake. Here they were, a species that the galaxy believed was extinct, receiving what might be a distress call from somewhere in the void. For 50 years, humanity had hidden in the shadows, watching and waiting. They had built new technologies and prepared for the day they might need to reveal themselves again. "Keep monitoring it," Jake ordered, "and get Sam Rodriguez down here. If anyone can figure out what this means, it's him." As the hours passed, the signal continued. The mathematical patterns grew more complex and urgent. Whatever was sending the message was clearly desperate. Dr. Park worked alongside the linguistics team trying to understand what they were dealing with. It's definitely a distress call, Sam Rodriguez confirmed after several hours of analysis. Someone is in serious trouble and broadcasting to anyone who might be listening. The problem is, we might be the only ones who heard it. Jake looked at the star charts showing the signal's origin point. It was far beyond where any council ship had ever traveled. Whatever was happening out there, the galaxy's official civilizations had no idea it existed. Sir, Dr. Park said quietly, if this is really a distress call, someone is asking for help. The question is, what do we do about it? Jake knew this moment would come eventually. Humanity could not hide forever. Sooner or later, they would face a choice between remaining in the shadows and stepping back into the light. He just had not expected that choice to come from a voice crying out in the darkness of space, begging for salvation from anyone who might be listening. 3 weeks had passed since the first signal arrived, and Dr. Lisa Park had barely slept. Her team worked around the clock in the hidden facility's main laboratory, surrounded by screens showing wave patterns and mathematical equations. The alien transmission had grown stronger each day, and the urgency in its mathematical language was becoming impossible to ignore. We've made a breakthrough, announced Sam Rodriguez, the chief linguist who had been leading the decoding effort. His eyes were red from staring at screens, but his voice carried excitement. The beings calling themselves the Kethmori have been sending us their entire history in compressed data packets. Captain Jake Morrison leaned over Sam's shoulder to examine the translated information. What he saw made his blood run cold. The screens showed star maps marking 17 solar systems, each one crossed out with a red symbol that clearly meant destruction. They're not just asking for help, Sam continued. They're warning us about something they call the Devourers. According to their data, these entities have been systematically destroying every living world in their region of space. Dr. Amy Wong, the team's xenobiologist, pulled up additional screens showing the biological data the Kethmori had transmitted. Look at this, she said, pointing to genetic sequences that appeared on her monitor. They've sent us samples of organic matter from the destroyed worlds. Everything has been converted into mechanical components. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Commander Alex Turner, who had been listening from the back of the room, stepped forward. Are you telling us that something is turning living beings into machines? Worse than that, Lisa replied, bringing up a tactical display. According to the Kethmori data, the Devourers don't just kill organic life, they harvest it. Every planet they consume makes their fleet larger and stronger. Jake studied the progression maps that Sam had decoded. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The Devourers moved from system to system in a methodical line, leaving nothing but empty worlds behind them. What worried him most was the direction. They were traveling. They're heading toward the galactic core, he said quietly. If they maintain their current course, they'll reach council space within 2 years. The weight of this discovery settled over the team like a heavy blanket. For 50 years, humanity had hidden from the galaxy, believing themselves to be the only major threat on the horizon. Now they faced something that could destroy not just humans, but every living being in known space. There's more, Sam said, pulling up another section of the decoded message. The Kethmori have been fighting the Devourers for over a century. They've tried everything. Weapons, negotiations, even attempting to hide like we did. Nothing worked. They're down to their last few thousand survivors. Amy enhanced the biological data on her screens. Their technology is fascinating. Instead of building machines, they grow them. Their ships are actually living creatures that they've modified for space travel. But even that advantage wasn't enough against the Devourers. Jake walked to the main viewing screen that showed a map of known space. What do we know about the Devourers themselves? Are they aliens or artificial intelligence? That's where it gets complicated, Lisa answered. The Kethmori believe they were once organic beings who chose to merge completely with their technology. They became something that sees organic life as inefficient and outdated. Commander Turner pulled up military projections on his tablet. If they've consumed 17 star systems, we're looking at a fleet size that could overwhelm the combined forces of the entire Galactic Council. And the Council doesn't even know this threat exists. The irony of the situation was not lost. on anyone in the room. Humanity had gone into hiding to avoid conflict with the very civilizations that might now need their help to survive. Jake knew that Admiral Ben Cruz would need to make another impossible decision. "How long do we have before the Kethmori are completely wiped out?" Jake asked. Sam checked his latest translations. Based on their last transmission, maybe weeks. They're broadcasting from their final stronghold, a heavily defended system at the edge of their former territory. Once the Devourers break through there, they'll have a clear path to our part of the galaxy. Lisa enhanced the signal analysis on her main screen. The mathematical patterns are becoming more desperate. They're not just asking for help anymore. They're begging. They know they're about to become extinct, and they're hoping someone, somewhere, might be able to warn the rest of the galaxy. Jake made his decision. "I want full analysis of everything they've sent us. Military capabilities, technology levels, strategic weaknesses of the Devourers. Everything." "Sir," Alex said carefully, "if we're thinking about helping them, we'd have to break protocol silence. The galaxy would learn that humanity survived." "I know," Jake replied, "but if we don't act, there might not be a galaxy left to hide from." Over the following days, the team worked frantically to understand everything the Kethmori had shared. Their organic technology was unlike anything humans had ever encountered. Ships that could heal themselves, weapons that adapted to enemy, defenses and communication networks that grew like living tissue across space. But even these advantages had not been enough. The Devourers learned and adapted faster than organic minds could counter them. They absorbed each new technology and improved upon it, becoming stronger with every battle. "There's something else," Amy discovered while studying the biological data. "The Devourers aren't just converting organic matter into machines. They're preserving the consciousness of their victims and forcing them to serve as components in their network." The room grew quiet as the full horror of the situation became clear. The Devourers were not just killers. They were enslavers of souls, trapping the minds of entire civilizations within their mechanical matrix. Jake knew that time was running out for both the Kethmori and potentially every living being in the galaxy. The question was whether humanity had the courage to step out of the shadows and face a threat that had already destroyed 17 civilizations. The cry for help was clear, but answering it would change everything humanity had built over the past 50 years. Captain Jake Morrison gripped the armrest of his command chair as his ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kethmori system. What he saw through the viewport made his stomach turn. The space around the last inhabited world was filled with debris, not from ships but from entire planets that had been torn apart and reassembled into massive mechanical structures. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Chris Martin from the navigation station. "How many worlds did they destroy to build that?" Before them stretched a fleet, unlike anything in human records. The Devourer ships were not built. They were grown from the consumed remains of civilizations. Entire continents had been reshaped into hull plating. What had once been cities now served as weapon arrays. The organic matter of billions of beings had been converted into a machine intelligence that spanned thousands of vessels. Jake activated his ship's advanced stealth systems, technology that humanity had perfected during their 50 years in hiding. "Keep us invisible and record everything. Command needs to see this." The ship moved silently through the debris field, its sensors recording the systematic destruction taking place. The Devourers worked with terrifying efficiency. Massive harvester ships stripped the surface of the last Kethmori world, while constructor vessels immediately began converting the organic matter into new mechanical components. "Sir?" called out the communications officer. "I'm picking up transmissions from the planet's surface. The Kethmori are still fighting." Jake ordered the message, put on speakers. Even through the translation devices, the desperation was clear. Kethmori commanders were coordinating their final defense, knowing they had no hope of victory. They fought not to win, but to buy time for their last transmission to reach anyone who might be listening. "They're trying to send a complete database of Devourer weaknesses," the communications officer reported. "Everything they've learned in over a century of fighting." Jake watched as a Kethmori ship, its organic hull damaged and bleeding actual blood, made a suicide run against a massive Devourer constructor. The explosion barely scratched the mechanical giant's surface, Within minutes, even the debris from the destroyed ship was being harvested and converted. "Captain," Chris said quietly, "look at the navigation data I'm picking up from the Devourer fleet." Jake studied the tactical display that appeared on his screen. His worst fears were confirmed. The Devourers were not randomly consuming worlds. They were following a specific path that led directly toward the galactic core where all the major civilizations lived. They know exactly where they're going, Jake realized. They've been planning this route for decades. The ship's science officer, Dr. Helen Carter, analyzed the energy readings from the Devourer fleet. "Sir, based on their current consumption, rate and the resources they've already gathered, they'll reach Council space with a force 10 times larger than anything the galaxy has ever seen." Jake ordered his ship to withdraw to a safe distance and contacted Admiral Ben Cruz through their encrypted communication network. The conversation that followed would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. "Admiral," Jake reported, "the Devourers are real, and they're worse than we imagined. They'll reach inhabited space within 18 months, not 2 years. When they do, they'll have the combined resources of 17 star systems converted into weapons." On the other end of the transmission, Admiral Cruz sat in the command center of humanity's primary hidden facility. Around him, screens showed data from monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council continued their normal activities, completely unaware of the approaching doom. "What about Council defenses?" the Admiral asked. "They won't be enough," Jake replied. "I've run the numbers. The combined fleets of all 12 Council species couldn't stop what's coming. The Devourers have been consuming civilizations for over a century. They know how to fight organic beings." Colonel Nina Foster, head of Human Special Operations, joined the conversation from her position at the Tactical Planning Station. "Sir, we've been monitoring Council communications. They have no idea this threat exists. Some of their long-range sensors have detected gravitational anomalies, but they think it's natural phenomena." Admiral Cruz studied the star charts showing Devourer positions and Council fleet deployments. The aliens had their ships spread across normal patrol routes and peacekeeping missions. When the mechanical fleet arrived, they would be completely unprepared. "Admiral," Jake continued, "there's something else. I was able to intercept some of the final Kethmori transmissions. They've been studying the Devourers for generations. According to their data, these machines have one major weakness." "What kind of weakness?" "They're dependent on a central coordination network. If you can disrupt their ability to communicate with each other, their efficiency drops dramatically. The Kethmori managed to temporarily blind them a few times using organic technology that interferes with mechanical systems." Dr. Lisa Park, who had been listening to the conversation, added her analysis. "Sir, if we combined Kethmori organic technology with our own advances in quantum computing and AI warfare, we might be able to develop something that could actually hurt them." The room fell silent as Admiral Cruz considered the implications. For 50 years, humanity had remained hidden, building their strength and waiting for the right moment to return to galactic society. They had always assumed that moment would come when they chose it. Now they faced a situation where they might have to reveal themselves to save the very civilizations that had wanted to destroy them. "Admiral," Colonel Foster said carefully, "we have 18 months to prepare. If we're going to act, we need to start now. But once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back to hiding." Chief Engineer Ryan Blake, who had been silent until now, spoke up from his workstation. "Sir, I've been analyzing the technical data from Jake's reconnaissance. The Devourers use a form of quantum entanglement for their coordination network. We've been working on quantum disruption technology for decades. We might actually have something that could work against them." Admiral Cruz looked around the room, at the faces of his officers. These people had given up normal lives to keep humanity safe in the shadows. Now he was asking them to step back into the light and face an enemy that had destroyed 17 civilizations. "There's one more thing we need to consider," the Admiral said finally. "If we do this, if we reveal ourselves and fight alongside the Council, we'll be saving the same species that wanted to wipe us out 50 years ago." Jake's voice came through, the communicator steady and determined. "Sir, that was 50 years ago. Right now, they're just people who are about to die if we don't help them. Whether they deserve our help or not, we're the only ones who can give it." Admiral Cruz made his decision. Begin preparation for Operation Revelation. We're going to war. The Galactic Council chambers had not seen such tension in decades. Emergency sessions were rare, and this one had been called with less than 6 hours' notice. Representatives from 12 worlds sat in their designated areas, confusion and concern visible on every face that could show such emotions. Captain Jake Morrison stood alone in the center of the Great Hall, wearing the uniform of the Earth Defense Force that most of these beings had thought would never be seen again. His ship, the UES Phoenix, waited in orbit above the Council Station, its appearance shocking every military scanner operator in the system. "Honorable delegates," Jake began, his voice carried by the same translation systems that had declared humanity extinct just months earlier. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Phoenix. I come before you with urgent news that affects every living being in this galaxy." Representative Zektar of the Vrelian Empire leaned forward in his seat, his 6 arms moving in gestures of suspicion. "Impossible. Humans are extinct. We declared it ourselves after 50 years of silence." "Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated," Jake replied calmly. "My ship is one of the last human vessels, and we have been exploring the outer rim for decades. What we discovered out there threatens everything we know." General Thakmor of the Korthak Empire stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow across the chamber floor. "You expect us to believe that one human ship survived while your entire civilization vanished? Where have you been for 50 years, Jake?" Activated the holographic display he had prepared. The center of the chamber filled with images that made several delegates gasp in horror. The systematic destruction of the Keth Mori worlds played out before them, showing the mechanical harvest that had consumed 17 star systems. "We have been witnessing this," Jake said, as the images showed devourer fleets converting entire planets into mechanical components. "An intelligence that calls itself the Devourers has been systematically destroying every organic civilization in the outer rim. They are now moving toward inhabited space." The chamber erupted in multiple languages, as delegates argued among themselves. Some species demanded proof, others wanted to know why humans had remained silent for so long, and a few were already calling for immediate military action. Ambassador Kate Sullivan, monitoring the session from humanity's hidden command center, watched the reactions carefully. She had served as Earth's primary diplomat before the Great Silence, and she understood the complex politics of the Council better than anyone. "They're buying it," she reported to Admiral Cruz. "Jake is playing the role of desperate survivor, perfectly. Most of them believe he represents humanity's last hope." On her screens, Kate could see the real human fleet preparing for battle. Hundreds of ships that the galaxy believed had never existed were moving into position throughout space, ready to support the deception while preparing for the real fight ahead. Back in the Council chambers, Representative Silnara of the Peaceful Altarian Federation was the first to offer support. "If this threat is real, we must act immediately. How long do we have?" Jake consulted his prepared data. "Based on their current progress, the Devourers will reach the outer colonies within 8 months. Once they begin harvesting inhabited worlds, their growth rate will accelerate exponentially." "What do you propose we do?" asked the delegate from the Nexarian Trade Alliance. "Our combined fleets have never faced anything like this." "I propose an alliance," Jake replied. "My ship carries the last records of human military technology. We have been studying these entities for months and have developed potential countermeasures. But we cannot do this alone." General Thakmor studied the tactical data Jake had provided. His military mind immediately grasped the scope of the threat. "These numbers suggest a fleet larger than anything in recorded history. How do we know your human technology will be effective?" Jake activated another display showing theoretical battle scenarios. "We have identified weaknesses in their coordination systems. Our quantum disruption technology might be able to interfere with their network communications. Without central coordination, they become much less efficient." What the Council did not know was that Dr. Lisa Park and her team were feeding Jake real-time updates through encrypted communications. Every question he answered had been prepared by the best minds humanity could offer, and every tactical suggestion came from 50 years of military advancement. "There is another issue," Representative Zektar said coldly. Even if we accept your story, why should we trust a species that vanished without explanation 50 years ago? Where were humans when we needed trade partners and allies? Jake had prepared for this question, but it still stung. Our civilization suffered a catastrophic plague that forced the survivors to remain in isolation. My ship was on a deep exploration mission when it happened. We have been alone ever since, traveling the outer rim and trying to find other survivors. The lie came easily, but Jake hated saying it. The truth was that humanity had hidden because they feared the very beings he was now asking for help. Ambassador Sullivan had crafted this cover story carefully to explain their absence without revealing their real reasons. "What resources can you offer?" asked the delegate from the technical consortium. "One ship, even with advanced technology, cannot turn the tide of such a conflict." "More than you might expect," Jake replied. "During our years in isolation, we have been salvaging and repairing every piece of human technology we could find. We have managed to restore several additional ships and have been training refugee populations from destroyed worlds." It was another carefully crafted lie. The refugee populations were actually millions of humans ready to emerge from hiding, and the restored ships were part of humanity's secret fleet that had been growing for 5 decades. Colonel Nina Foster, watching from the hidden command center, coordinated the movements of human ships that were now positioning themselves to support Jake's story. Scout vessels appeared at the edge of sensor range, their signatures matching the energy patterns of ships that had been repaired and modified over many years. "I am detecting multiple contacts approaching the system," announced the Council's defense coordinator. "Energy signatures match human technology, but they appear heavily modified." Jake nodded as if this was expected. "My fleet consists of 12 ships and approximately 8,000 survivors from various human colonies. It is all that remains of our people, but we offer it freely to defend the galaxy." The number was carefully chosen, large enough to be useful in the coming fight, but small enough to support the story of a dying civilization making its last stand. The delegates would never suspect that this remnant fleet was actually just the advance guard of humanity's true military might. "We will need to verify your claims," General Thakmore said finally. "But if what you say is true, we cannot afford to ignore this threat." Ambassador Sullivan smiled as she watched the Council vote to accept humanity's offer of alliance. The deception was working perfectly. Soon, human ships would be fighting alongside alien fleets, and the galaxy would have a chance to survive. What was coming? Jake concluded his address with words that carried more truth than the delegates realized. "We may be few in number, but we will stand with you against this threat. No civilization should face extinction alone." The Joint Command Center buzzed with activity as beings from 12 different worlds worked side by side for the first time in galactic history. Captain Jake Morrison stood before a massive tactical display showing the approaching Devourer fleet, its mechanical components now consuming the outer rim worlds at an alarming pace. "Their advance has accelerated," reported Commander Alex Turner, who had been secretly coordinating human forces while maintaining his cover as a refugee fleet officer. "They're harvesting 3 systems simultaneously now. Each world they consume adds approximately 50 new ships to their fleet." General Thakmore of the Korthak Empire studied the projections with growing concern. His species had built their reputation on military strength, but even their battle-hardened warriors had never faced anything like this. "At this rate, they will reach the Altarian colonies within 5 months, not 8. The Altarian representative, Silnara, paled at the news. Her people were pacifists by nature, relying on other species for protection. "Our worlds have no military defenses. We trusted in the Council's protection." Jake had been preparing for this moment for weeks. "We need to evacuate the outer colonies and consolidate our forces at strategic defensive points. Fighting them, world by world, will only make them stronger." "Easy words from someone whose people are already gone," muttered Representative Zektar. "The Vrelian Empire has 12 inhabited worlds in the Outer Rim. We cannot simply abandon them." The tension in the room was obvious. Despite the threat they faced, old prejudices and territorial disputes continued to divide the alliance. Jake knew that humanity's secret fleets were already moving to protect those same worlds, but he had to maintain the illusion of limited resources. Dr. Amy Wong, now serving as the official liaison for human technology, presented her analysis of the rescued Kethmori survivors. We've learned incredible things from the refugees we managed to save. Their organic technology operates on principles completely different from our mechanical systems. In a secured medical bay, the last surviving Kethmori leader, Silthera, worked with human and alien scientists to share everything her people had learned. Her species resembled giant butterflies with wings that could interface directly with their living ships. The sight of her wounded form reminded everyone what failure would mean. The Devourers adapt to every weapon we use against them, Silthera explained through translation devices. But they struggle with organic systems that grow and change naturally. They cannot predict what has never existed before. Chief Engineer Ryan Blake, officially listed as a refugee technician, studied the Kethmori biotechnology with fascination. Their ships literally grew from seed pods, developing new capabilities as they matured. It was the opposite of mechanical engineering, and it offered possibilities that even advanced human technology had never explored. If we could combine your organic principles with our quantum disruption systems, Ryan suggested carefully, we might create weapons that the Devourers cannot adapt to quickly enough. General Thakmor was skeptical. You speak of theoretical weapons while we face a real enemy. My fleets need solid battle plans, not scientific experiments. Your fleets also need to survive long enough to fight, Jake replied firmly. The Kethmori had superior numbers and centuries of experience. Traditional tactics will not work against this enemy. The debate was interrupted by urgent alarms. Lieutenant Chris Martin, monitoring long-range sensors, announced the news that everyone had been dreading. The Devourers have reached the Xerion system. They're beginning planetary harvest operations. The tactical display updated to show the mechanical fleet surrounding Xerion Prime, a minor colony world with 2 million inhabitants. Within hours, the planet's surface was covered with harvesting machines that began converting everything they touched into mechanical components. We have to help them, Silnara pleaded. 2 million people are about to die. Any ship we send will be destroyed and added to their fleet, Thakmor replied coldly. We cannot save everyone. Jake made a decision that would test the limits of their deception. My ships are fast and equipped with stealth technology. We might be able to evacuate some of the population. What he did not mention was that 3 human dreadnoughts were already moving toward the Xerion system, their advanced stealth systems making them invisible to both Devourer and Council sensors. The rescue operation would be real, but the ships performing it carried far more firepower than any refugee fleet should possess. Commander Turner coordinated the operation from his position at the tactical station. Phoenix and 2 escort vessels are departing for Xerion. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. The rescue mission that followed became legend among the survivors. Human ships appeared from nowhere, their stealth systems allowing them to slip past. Devourer patrols and extract hundreds of thousands of refugees before the mechanical fleet could respond. When Devourer ships finally detected the rescue vessels, they found opponents that moved and fought like nothing they had encountered before. How did your ship survive that engagement? General Thakmor demanded when the rescue fleet returned. My sensors showed Devourer cruisers firing directly at your positions. Jake had prepared for this question. We've spent 50 years running from enemies and learning to hide. Our stealth technology has been our only advantage. The partial truth satisfied most of the council, but Jake could see suspicion growing in some faces. The human refugee fleet was performing far too well for ships that had supposedly been cobbled together from salvage. Dr. Lisa Park, monitoring from the hidden command center, reported growing concerns. Several council intelligence officers are analyzing our ship signatures. They're starting to ask questions about our technology levels. Ambassador Sullivan studied the political situation carefully. The Vrelians are definitely suspicious. Zektar has been requesting detailed specifications of our quantum disruption systems. The situation became more complicated when the rescued Xerion colonists began sharing their stories. They spoke of human ships that fought with coordination and effectiveness that seemed impossible for a desperate refugee fleet. There were dozens of them, one survivor reported. They moved like they had been working together for years. not like ships that had just found each other. Jake knew that their deception was beginning to crack under scrutiny. The more successfully they fought against the Devourers, the more questions they would face about their true capabilities. But the alternative was watching entire civilizations fall to the mechanical harvest. The crisis came to a head when General Thakmore confronted Jake directly. "I have been fighting battles for longer than your species has existed. No refugee fleet performs with the precision your ships display. What are you not telling us?" Before Jake could answer, alarms sounded throughout the command center. The long-range sensors had detected something that changed everything. The main Devourer fleet was no longer following its predicted course. Instead of moving methodically from system to system, it was advancing directly toward the galactic core at maximum speed. "They know we're organizing resistance," Commander Turner reported. "They're accelerating their timeline." Jake looked at the tactical display showing the mechanical fleet bearing down on inhabited space like a storm of metal and death. In 18 hours, the Devourers would reach the first major population centers. The time for deception was over. The battle for the Centauri system began at dawn, if such a term had meaning in the depths of space. The combined fleets of the Galactic Council spread across 3 defensive lines, their ships gleaming in the light of twin stars that might soon witness the end of organic civilization. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Phoenix watching as Devourer scouts emerged from hyperspace like harbingers of mechanical doom. Behind them came the main fleet, thousands of ships built from the bones of 17 dead civilizations, their hulls crafted from entire worlds that had been consumed and converted. "All Council fleets report ready," announced Commander Alex Turner from the tactical station. "But sir, the numbers are not in our favor." Jake studied the readings flowing across his screens. Even with every ship the Council could muster, they were outnumbered 5-1. The Devourer vessels were larger, better armed, and completely expendable. Worse yet, every ship they destroyed would be harvested and added to the enemy fleet. Within hours, "Admiral Cruz," Jake spoke into his encrypted communicator. "It's time." 50 light-years away, Admiral Ben Cruz stood in the command center of humanity's primary military facility. Around him, screens showed the positions of human fleets that had remained hidden for half a century. With one word, he would reveal the greatest secret in galactic history. "All ships," the Admiral broadcast on the emergency frequency. "Operation Revelation is now active. Drop stealth systems and engage the enemy." Across the battlefield, space began to shimmer as hundreds of human ships materialized from nowhere. They appeared behind Devourer formations, above Council positions, and throughout the system in perfect coordination. The alien delegates in the Joint Command Center stared in shock as their sensors registered vessel after vessel bearing human signatures. "Impossible," whispered General Thakmore, his massive frame trembling as he watched the tactical display. "There are hundreds of them." Representative Zektar turned to stare at Jake with all 6 of his eyes burning with anger. "You lied to us. Humans are not extinct. You never were." Jake removed his helmet and faced the assembled delegates. "No, we are not extinct. For 50 years we have been watching and preparing. We went into hiding because we learned that several Council species were planning to destroy us." The revelation sent shockwaves through the command center. Species that had spent decades assuming humanity was gone now realized they had been living alongside a civilization that had been observing their every move. "But why reveal yourselves now?" asked Silnara of the Altarians. "Why risk everything to save us?" "Because," Jake replied, "some things are more important than old grudges. The Devourers threaten every living being in the galaxy. Today we are not humans and aliens. We are the living fighting against the mechanical dead. The battle that followed would be remembered as the greatest space engagement in galactic history. Human ships moved with precision that awed their alien allies. Technologies developed in secret for 50 years were unleashed against an enemy that had never encountered such resistance. Dr. Lisa Park's quantum disruption weapons fired their first shots, sending waves of interference through the Devourer coordination networks. For the first time in over a century, the mechanical fleet began to show confusion as their perfect unity faltered. "It's working," reported Chief Engineer Ryan Blake from his position aboard the human flagship Defiance. Their response times are dropping by 30%. The organic technology provided by the Kethmori survivors proved equally effective. Living weapons that grew and adapted in real time confused, devourer targeting systems that expected mechanical predictability. Silthara, despite her injuries, coordinated these bioweapons from the medical bay with tears of hope streaming down her butterfly-like face. But the devourers were not defenseless. Their massive ships unleashed firepower that could crack planets, and their numerical advantage began to tell as the battle progressed. Council ships fell under concentrated fire, their crews sacrificing themselves to buy time for human technology to take effect. "We're losing too many," Commander Turner reported, as another Altarian cruiser exploded under devourer bombardment. "Even with our advantages, they're wearing us down." Jake made the hardest decision of his life. All human ships, implement Protocol Phoenix, reveal our full capabilities. Across the battlefield, human vessels that had been holding back their true power suddenly erupted with weapons and defenses that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about technology. Ships that had appeared to be destroyers revealed themselves as dreadnoughts. Frigates unleashed the firepower of battleships. The refugee fleet became an armada. Admiral Cruz's voice reached every ship in the combined fleet. "People of the galaxy, this is Admiral Ben Cruz of the United Earth Forces. For 50 years humanity has prepared for this day. We offer you our strength, our technology, and our lives. Together, we will drive back this threat." The tide of battle began to turn as human AI warfare systems engaged the Devourer network directly. Quantum viruses designed by Dr. Park's team infected the mechanical coordination systems, causing entire formations to fire on each other or lose cohesion entirely. General Takmor, commanding the Korthak Heavy Assault Fleet, found himself fighting alongside human dreadnoughts that moved like living things. "Your ships," he broadcast to Jake. "They fight with honor. I was wrong to doubt you." The climax came when Jake's Phoenix led a desperate assault on the Devourer command ship, a massive construct built from the remains of 3 different worlds. The vessel coordinated the entire mechanical fleet, and destroying it would shatter their ability to fight as a unified force. "All ships, concentrate fire on the command vessel," Jake ordered. "This ends here." The combined fleet poured everything they had into the assault. Human quantum weapons, Korthak plasma cannons, Altarian energy disruptors, and Kethmori bioweapons all struck the massive ship simultaneously. For a moment, it seemed as though the construct might survive even this onslaught. Then Dr. Park's ultimate weapon activated. A quantum virus specifically designed to target the Devourer Central Intelligence infected their command systems. The virus spread through their network like fire, causing confusion and chaos throughout their entire fleet. The command ship began to break apart as its mechanical components lost coordination. Without central control, Devourer ships threw out. The system stopped fighting and began trying to retreat. But human ships were ready for this moment, cutting off escape routes and systematically destroying vessels that could no longer coordinate their defense. As the last Devourer ship fell, silent, the battlefield grew quiet except for the distress calls of wounded vessels and the cheers of survivors. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy and helped save every living civilization from extinction. Ambassador Kate Sullivan's voice reached the Joint Command Center from Earth itself. "Representatives of the Galactic Council, I am Ambassador Sullivan speaking from Earth. We formally request readmission to the galactic community and offer our full cooperation in preventing future threats to organic life." Representative Silnara was the first to respond. "The Altarian Federation welcomes humanity back to the stars. We have seen your courage and honor this day." Even Representative Zektar, despite his earlier anger, nodded slowly. "The Vrelian Empire acknowledges that we may have misjudged human intentions 50 years ago. Today you have proven yourselves worthy allies." General Thakmor stood and performed the Korthak salute of highest respect. "The human fleet fought with the strength of 10 civilizations. We are honored to call you brothers in battle." Jake looked out at the debris field that had once been the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. The Devourers were gone, but their defeat had come at great cost. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species had been lost, and thousands of brave beings had given their lives for victory. But in that sacrifice, something new had been born. For the first time in galactic history, every major species had fought side by side against a common enemy. The bonds forged in battle would reshape the galaxy for generations to come. Admiral Cruz's final transmission reached every ship in the fleet. Today we have proven that when the living stand together, no force in the universe can defeat us. The stars belong to those who fight for life, hope, and the future of all organic beings. The war was over, but the peace that followed would be built on the foundation of unity forged in humanity's darkest hour, when Earth answered the cry for help and changed the galaxy forever.